The king sends for his trusty knights to protect the lands near and far. I will always be there to answer the call.
And there he is in game.
Beautiful. I love the armor, by the way. Before we dive into the kit,
oh my gosh.
I love the armor. I cannot
Again,
stop
3D
over
art
it.
and modeling team, Quinn, they all just do such a fantastic job. The color that comes out, the concept art also really helps kick this off.
The entire art team obviously smashed it on this one. He's got such nice details. We're trying to make some historical inspiration in these Arthurian characters, but we also want to amplify them up to, make sure they feel like they fit on the battleground of the gods. So he's got a very, ornate weapon and shield, and then his armor has a lot of cool intricacies to it while still being functional.
And one quick thing to know before we get into the thick of it, one part of Lancelot's lore too was that he was brought up by the Lady of the Lake. Which gave him a little bit of more of like these magical traits, these magical artifacts even that were given to him. And we wanted to play up on that, both in his model, so because he's like got this sweet horse on his shield, which will come into part of his gameplay, as well as into his kit as well. So he's got a little bit of a superhuman traits to him.
He is one of the Arthurian knights that has specific supernatural qualities listed in the various texts because he grew up in that Fey realm, grew up amongst other magical beings, and that possibly is the reason why he is such a gifted fighter.
For sure. But
I say, y'all keep teasing about this kit. Let's just get right into it. Like, show us the moves. Let's run through it.
Face me!
Killing spree!
Seconds for a champion.
Oh yeah.
all right.
That's it. Okay, so we saw a lot
We
of
saw,
stuff
we saw a lot of different stuff.
More
going
than
on.
4 abilities.
Okay. Well, okay. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that in a second.
Explain yourself, but
one thing
slowly.
to keep a note, just because it's always important. We've got Tower Killer on.
Yeah,
We've got
he does
Champion
not
on.
actually do 5,000 damage per base.
He doesn't one-shot people. That's just our fun dev commands. But he will not be hitting you for 54-10 damage with his basic attacks, even at level 20. But yeah, we can get started with the different parts of his kit.
Excellent.
He is a stance switcher.
Let's just start. Lancelot, he's got the lance going for him.
You're right.
What's the basic attack
That's
chain?
pretty important. So his basic attack, the main thing we want to shout out, is he is using a lance. It's a weapon that's a little bit larger than normal, and because of that, we do have the extended melee attack range that we do give to certain gods with larger weapons.
Yeah.
So he's going to be hitting from outside the normal melee attack range.
And you also might notice the in-combat and out-of-combat animations on Lancelot, where when he's recently attacked, he's got his shield and lance very up, but he eventually relaxes, and it looks very nice. And huge shout out to the animation team for
That is the
keeping
hardest
that
part.
going.
That's the hardest part about working here is trying to, like, if somebody's like, what can we do better? I'm like, I don't know. People just perform all the time. It's crazy. So let's move on to the movie.
And there's one thing that was added right there as well, just because I guess there's 1+1 feature, is that the third hit of his basic attack chain is a cleave, so we'll do a multi-hit. Will help him out in the jungle. And I thought it felt fitting for the kind of the sweeping lance.
The sweep,
right?
a different motion instead of just all pokey.
Instead of all jabbing. All right, so let's get into the passive, Camelot's Quest.
Camelot's Quest. This is a little bit more of a simple one, which is nice to see with the rest of his kit being a little bit more complicated.
Fair enough.
Did you count?
Lose count.
But so Camelot's Quest, it's just a stacking, something that he gains power over time. Lancelot receives a stack for a god killer assist, and 1 stack for every several minion kills. When he gets stacks, he's got the 2 states, the mounted state and the unmounted state.
Yeah.
So while he's specifically in the mounted state, each stack provides increased movement speed. When he's in the unmounted state, each stack will provide something a little bit more unique. It's reduced basic attack damage, but only taken from directly in front. So if you hit Lancelot from the sides, from the back with basic attack damage, you're going to be doing the full amount. But if you're hitting him direct, if you're like dueling him and you're hitting him straight on, you're going to be doing actually a little bit of reduced damage.
Don't joust a jouster. You're going to get jousted.
Yep. So playing a little bit with those jousting duels and the shield motifs.
I hate to see him on the joust map. It would not be a joust I want to be a part of. But I also love how you brought in from jousting that whole face your opponent head on thing.
Right.
Super cool. Next up, Piercing Thrust.
Yeah, so this is Lancelot's first ability while not mounted. Pretty simple here. Lancelot dashes forwards. You can see it's kind of got 2 components in this target here. It's almost like the tip of a sword or a tip of a lance
It's got a
in a way.
unique shape.
He actually will stop towards the end of that rectangular component while he continues to extend forwards with his lance to the end of the inverted cone, the the tip. He hits and he dashes through enemies, and if he hits an enemy, he actually gets a second fire of this as well.
Got it.
It's not a very long range, so it's not really great for, escaping a fight. He has other tools that'll help him there.
Yeah.
But if you want to weave through the battle, again, it's playing around with those agility feels. We talked about how it didn't feel right for him to be a warrior. It didn't really feel right for him to be a guardian. As an assassin, we wanted to make him feel like he's going to be darting through the battlefield, right? That's the kind of, when King Arthur's leading the charge, Lancelot's kind of all around, kind of dueling and taking out swordsmen and fighting all around him.
I mean, and that makes sense too, with the whole using the lance. Like, it's not like a sword. It's a lot harder to swing around. You're really looking for that one precise shot that get where you need to get and make your strike. So,
and with the refire here and the stance changing, you're going to see a little bit of a higher skill cap, I'd say,
Absolutely.
on this assassin. So you can really, we've seen some really cool things in playtests of people using this ability in all sorts of unique ways to make sure they hit the right targets or do a hit and a dodge. Lots of flexibility on this game.
And you can use that first part if you hit an enemy, and then stop, use other parts of your kit, and you have a few seconds to use that again. So you are not forced to do 2 in a row. And it's any enemy, so you can help. You can actually utilize this in the jungle to help clear as well.
Oh, handy.
Good reminder to have.
Yeah,
minions and jungle minions count as enemies.
Yep. But yeah, let's go into the second ability.
Let's do it. Skilled strikes.
So we're talking about his, the different things that he can do with his lance and his shield. So this is kind of a 2-part ability here, where Lancelot has a small cone area in front of him, where he will slam enemies in front of him with his shield, and then he goes from there into a swiping attack with his lance. There we go. So
Nice.
a few things you can see the target are changing. First things first is that slam of the shield will actually knock back enemies, kind of more towards the end of what will be the second part of that ability, because the second part is a larger cone that's split into 2 parts. That outer part will actually deal bonus damage if enemies are within that. So again, playing a little bit with the agility, playing with the skill and precision of Lancelot is you don't actually want to use skill strikes and then just W key and run into your enemies. You actually want to make sure that you're getting them into the right spot. So maybe utilize the AO1, the first ability to get into the fight, utilize the skill strikes to push them, and then use the second refire of the dash to get right back into the fight.
It encourages you to stay in that sweet spot of his basic attack range, where the other assassin potentially can't even hit you back. Because you have the longer basic attacks, which is a really powerful effect in Smite that I think is often overlooked. There are a few characters that have it, Wilix, Achilles, Guan Yu, I believe, and it is really powerful. And if you are really careful with your positioning, it can do a lot of good, especially in a one-on-one. So this ability gives you that bonus damage for hitting in that sweet spot and kind of puts that enemies back in that sweet spot, so you can maintain that right distance from them.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that's really cool too with the way its passive works, is you're incentivizing facing your enemy head on and getting them directly in front of you, like face to face. I think that's incredible. So, and yeah, the combo potential for that is unreal. I'll be excited to see that utilized in the game. So next up, kind of a transitional ability, it looks like. We have Mounts Up, which I believe starts the fun second half of Lancelot.
Exactly. So what are we going to have? Lancelot's not Lancelot without the jousting motifs, without his horse.
You can't joust without a horse. They don't just run at each other.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make sense. And we really wanted to play up with this. It's something that we mentioned in the dev blog. It's something that we thought was really important to who Lancelot is.
It was the initial idea behind Lancelot, was like there was not going to be a Lancelot without a horse.
Without a horse.
It's something that everyone kind of expected to see, and we weren't going to disappoint. And with that, we wanted to make sure that that's kind of why he ended up being a stance switcher, is because we wanted to make sure that he excels on the battlefield without being on a horse, right? He's not a cavalry charger, and that's going to be really, really important to this stance.
Yeah.
He's not going to be in mounted combat a lot. That's not his role in a fight, right? It's to actually get down and dirty and use his lance. But to traverse the battlefield, to kind of engage fights, he's going to be on his horse. So this ability Mounts Up puts him onto his trusty steed, and there's a couple of different things going on. One, of course, it's a movement speed buff. He's going to be gaining increased movement speed. His horse is going to help him move a little bit faster than he can travel himself. And a second thing is he gets a health shield. So you can see when he's dismounted and he mounts up for the first time, there'll be a shield that kind of gains over time up to a max.
Okay,
the reason why that's important is because if that health shield is ever depleted, he is instantly dismounted by his enemies. And he can
Strong counterplay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because again, the goal is not for him to stay on the battlefield forever. Now, if you have God mode, of course, that's going to help
All the
out a
cheats
lot.
on
It will be a little hard, yeah.
But when he does take,
It's okay.
no, don't worry about it. When you do take that max health shield as damage, you will be dismounted by your enemies, and Similar to a Wheelix, if you do just want to, cancel input to get off your horse, you can do that without incurring a cooldown on the mount up ability too.
Okay, that's awesome, yeah. So, I mean, obviously when you're mounted up, your abilities kind of take on a new face, starting with Shining Gallop.
Shining Gallop is the first ability while mounted. So, the reason why I gave a lot of that preamble early is because the other thing that's important is he is not the mounted combatant all the time. Both of his main abilities in the stance will actually dismount Lancelot and put him into the fray. This is Lancelot's kind of only poke tool, and Shining Gallop will actually have Lancelot send out the horse in front of him in a line as he dismounts in place. The horse, taking on some of those ethereal qualities, again, he's got a little bit of that magic enhancement going on, will actually be able to pass through all enemies and walls, slowing them as it tramples over them.
As it tramples over them I don't know why, that was just a great way to end that sentence, because, yeah. Awesome. So next up, Crashing Dive, another mounted ability.
Crashing Dive, the second mounted ability, again, will actually end up dismounting Lancelot. First, Lancelot will surge upwards off of his horse, rooting enemies in a small circle around him, dealing no damage. But then Lancelot actually crashes back down into the fight, dealing pretty heavy damage in a larger circle around him. And you can see there, he's kind of got a little bit of movement while he's in the air to position himself well. You can go omnidirectional with that. And yeah, like I said, it'll be a root on the way up and then damage on the way down. The root is a very, very short duration. It's just kind of just to play with aesthetic, play with the team, give him a little bit of crowd control from the mounted state.
And the animation team did such a fantastic job with him mounting up and dismounting, and these abilities feel really good. The timings and the weight behind his attacks feel great, and I know the tech art team and engineering team also had to do a lot of work. When we have to
so thankful.
Make two characters work as one in Smite,
tandem,
it's a very complicated process, and each time we do it, we've been getting better at it. We made some really big technical strides, so big shout outs to those teams as well on Lancelot, and these two abilities, they feel really great to use.
Yeah, like you said, the animation is just incredible too. Like it doesn't feel like a half-hearted attack. Like you really see him put his whole body into the motions and animation. So.
And you reminded me as well, talking a little bit about the mounted state too, is that as we said in the blog post, Lancelot's mounted state is going to have him constantly moving forwards, very similar to Hachimon and Guan Yun's ultimates.
Right.
You are not strafing, you are not maneuvering your horse like a Wheelix. You have a limited turn radius, so if you can see here, go ahead and turn as sharply as you can. That's what it is. It is limited. In the jungle and in other game modes, you want to make sure that you're utilizing your turn radius as best as you can, but his third ability kind of helps that a little bit, and it's very niche. It's going to be something that you don't see as often, but it's super helpful after your ultimate, and that's just quick turn, and all it does.
All right, so it looks like we've gone through the regular abilities, we've gone through the mounted abilities.
Just one more.
Just one more.
Just one more because it's going to be tied. The Grand Joust is Lancelot's ultimate ability. He can use this while mounted or while unmounted, and it'll do the same thing, which is basically Lancelot's going to be rearing up as his horse is preparing to charge ahead. During this time, there's going to be actually a jousting list that is created ahead in an area. You can see that rectangular area. The jousting list itself, once deployed, will cripple enemies in that area. And after that's created, Lancelot will then charge ahead with his horse, dealing damage to all enemies that he hits. You have movement control in this, and you actually have a faster turn radius when you're in this area too, damaging any enemies that he comes in collision with.
That's awesome. I love that you can see the indicator.
There it is. So you can see you have your own turn mechanic. Enemies in the area are just crippled. There's no damage associated to the field itself. And like I said, if you're zooming past enemies because you're charging ahead, it's very useful to use quick turn after that to make sure that you can get right back into the fight.
Yeah.